entire generation that had come out of Egypt had died in the wilderness, as the Lord had decreed, due to their disobedience and lack of faith. This new generation, counted and ready, was now the one that would enter the Promised Land, under the leadership of Joshua, with the promise of God's continued guidance and blessing. Zelophehad was from the Manasseh tribe, and he had 5 daughters, whose names were Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. One day his daughters went to the sacred tent, where they met with Moses, Eleazar, and some other leaders of Israel, as well as a large crowd of Israelites. The young women said, "You know that our father died in the desert, but it was for something he did wrong, not for joining with Korah in rebelling against the Lord. Our father left no sons to carry on his family name, but why should his name die out for that reason? Give us some land like the rest of his relatives in our clan, so our father's name can live on." Moses asked the Lord what should be done, and the Lord answered, "Zelophehad's daughters are right. They should each be given part of the land their father would have received. Tell the Israelites that when a man dies without a son, his daughter will inherit his land. If he has no daughter, his brothers will inherit the land. But if he has no brothers, his father's brothers will inherit the land. And if his father has no brothers, the land must be given to his nearest relative in the clan. This is my law, and the Israelites must obey it." The Lord said to Moses, "One day you will go up into the Abarim mountains, and from there you will see the land I am giving the Israelites. After you have seen it, you will die, just like your brother Aaron, because both of you disobeyed me at Meribah near the town of Kadesh in the Zin desert. When the Israelites insulted me there, you didn't believe in my holy power." Moses replied, "You are the Lord God, and you know what is in everyone's heart. So I ask you to appoint a leader for Israel. Your people need someone to lead them into battle, or else they will be like sheep wandering around without a shepherd." The Lord answered, "Joshua son of Nun can do the job. Place your hands on him to show that he is the one to take your place. Then go with him and tell him to stand in front of Eleazar the priest and the Israelites. Appoint Joshua as their new leader, and tell them they must now obey him, just as they obey you. But Joshua must depend on Eleazar to find out from me what I want him to do as he leads Israel into battle." Moses followed the Lord's instructions and took Joshua to Eleazar and the people. Then he placed his hands on Joshua and appointed him Israel's leader. The Lord told Moses to say to Israel's tribal leaders, "When one of you men makes a promise to the Lord, you must keep your word. Suppose a young woman who is still living with her parents makes a promise to the Lord. If her father hears about it and says nothing, she must keep her promise. But if he hears about it and objects, then she no longer has to keep her promise. The Lord will forgive her because her father did not agree with the promise. Suppose a woman makes a promise to the Lord and then gets married. If her husband later hears about the promise but says nothing, she must do what she said, whether she meant it or not. But if her husband hears about the promise and objects, she no longer has to keep it, and the Lord will forgive her. Widows and divorced women must keep every promise they make to the Lord. Suppose a married woman makes a promise to the Lord. If her husband hears about the promise and says nothing, she must do what she said. But if he hears about the promise and does object, she no longer has to keep it. The Lord will forgive her because her husband would not allow her to keep the promise. Her husband has the final say about any promises she makes to the Lord. If her husband hears about a promise and says nothing about it for a whole day, she must do what she said. Since he did not object, the promise must be kept. But if he waits until the next day to stop her from keeping her promise, he is the one who must be punished. These are the laws that the Lord gave Moses about husbands and wives, and about young daughters who still live at home. The Lord said to Moses, "Before you die, make sure that the Midianites are punished for what they did to Israel." Then Moses told the people, "The Lord wants to punish the Midianites, so tell our men to prepare for battle. Each tribe will send 1,000 men to fight." 12,000 men were picked from the tribes of Israel, and after they were prepared for battle, Moses sent them off to war. Phinehas the son of Eleazar went with them, and took along some things from the sacred tent, and the trumpets for sounding the battle signal. The Israelites fought against the Midianites, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. They killed all the men, including Balaam son of Beor, and the 5 Midianite kings, Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba. The Israelites captured every woman and child, then led away the Midianites' cattle and sheep, and took everything else that belonged to them. They also burned down the Midianite towns and villages. Israel's soldiers gathered together everything they had taken from the Midianites, including the captives and the animals. Then they returned to their own camp in the hills of Moab, across the Jordan River from Jericho.